All right, we'll kick off daily briefing here on Tuesday. Jim Benton here from Chorus. And Brendan Reeves, appreciate you joining us today, Director of Sales Strategy and Operations at Carta. How's the Tuesday going?
It's going well, Jim. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. You know, it's been different working from home for the last couple of weeks. This is a new environment for me. How have you personally been just holding up with just everything going on in the world?
Pretty well. It's actually been an interesting experience because for our company, we didn't really have a culture of working from home at all. And personally, my team split between both Salt Lake City and San Francisco. And aside from the first week of doing work from home, it's actually been a really good experience of bringing the team much closer together. You know, myself being based in San Francisco you tend to have much more focus with the team there. Whereas now we're kind of all on a level playing field right now.
It's funny, when I joined Chorus a few weeks ago, I still have not met many of my coworkers in person just because it started during this time.
Right.
But as our teams in Tel Aviv and Toronto have said to me, in Boston, they just feel like location's been democratized and that they feel closer than ever to us, as I've mentioned before.
Right.
So it's really interesting. I think there'll be some great insights that come out of this in ways that we work. Today, we wanted to, Brendan, jump into the data. So we're going to specifically look at, and I'll just pull this up here, specifically look at the productivity in major markets and specifically sales productivity and how it's been impacted in these specific markets here. And so we want to look at, as we see there's 160,000 people that have been now impacted by COVID. We have a lot of people working from home, adjusting to this new way of working. What does it look like actually by the major markets? And Brendan, on your side, do you have folks in some of these markets yourself on the sales and customer side?
Yeah, so we have offices in New York, San Francisco, and Seattle. And we have a remote person in Chicago.
Gotcha. So what we saw, yesterday I shared with everybody that overall, for the week of March 23rd, we saw that sales productivity was essentially even. It was actually up a hair from the week prior. So it's super impressive that people are continuing to work and to engage and solve problems from remote spots. But by market, there's been some big hits. Boston down 20%, Chicago down 20% from baseline. And then last week, the rebound. So last week we saw these markets, and surprisingly, New York was up 11% last week, given all the challenging news that we're all seeing from there. Can you tell me a little bit about just the experience you're seeing in your remote offices and how they're continuing to operate in these times?
We've found more of a drop off in our Salt Lake City office. But across the board, it's been pretty equal. And it's sort of similar where we had an initial drop off and then things have kind of levelized.
There's Salt Lake City. So Salt Lake City's been down actually more than some of the others, 13%. Last week, it bounced back 10%. Did you see any bounce back yourself in just the last week or so?
Similar bounce back, but they definitely dropped off more than our San Francisco offices.
And Brendan, what are some of the things that you're doing to support your remote teams at this time?
So we have a lot more sort of daily stand-up calls, similar to sort of this daily briefing, just to keep people more engaged. At least with our actual sales teams, we've got a number of channels going to help people on how to respond to pushback from customers around COVID-19. We're also, as a company, trying to be a little more flexible and accommodating, especially we've got a large customer base of smaller companies. So we're trying to be a little more flexible there around payment terms and things like that.
On your daily stand-up, just for others that are doing this, do you have a specific agenda to that? Just what's the style of how you kick off your team?
So for my team, and I'm speaking just on sort of the go-to-market operations, in the past, prior to this, we would have more of a structured meeting, whereas now we keep it a little more unstructured. And that's because, we're kind of missing all of the normal banter that happens in the office. And I want people to have that same level of engagement.
It makes a lot of sense. We're testing different things on our side on that front, more around the virtual lunches and happy hours and so forth, but just trying to get people to engage. One of the interesting insights is that when we look at across all of our customers that have already been fully remote teams, they saw one of the biggest lifts. I mean, they've seen a lift of over 20%, from baseline. And so A, they've had experience doing this, and B, a lot of them are supporting kind of remote work in general, just given the products that they have out there. Any surprise there when you look at that? Any thoughts as you think about the future of how we all work from a remote standpoint?
No, it'll be interesting to see how things, evolve over time, because I think, right now you might see some initial productivity gains, but that could change over time, because this is also a little bit of a unique situation we're in.
Have there been any surprises for you, Brendan, as you've looked at just the way people have worked during this last few weeks in this period?
I think I wouldn't say surprised, but it's been good to see the amount of how people have kind of come together and everybody's stepped up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We're seeing that across our team. And what advice would you give to go-to-market executives out there that are working through this? They're trying to get insights into how their teams are performing, or trying to understand if people are still engaging.
I think there needs to be a certain level of compassion, at least for the go-to-market teams, because they're dealing with a lot of customers who are under quite a bit of stress themselves. So both within their businesses, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's many companies trying to decide whether they're doing layoffs or not, and there's so much uncertainty right now just on, obviously we're going into a bit of a downtime right now, but we don't know how long that's going to be or how severe. And understanding that actually makes it quite difficult on a go-to-market team, because all of a sudden we're going from a higher spending environment to potentially a contractionary environment. And so a lot of decisions are getting pushed off because they've suddenly become deprioritized. And I can say that from tools, for example, that we were evaluating that have been completely taken off the roadmap for us.
To speak, Brendan, a little bit more about the compassion side. I've heard, yesterday I had Jody Maxon on from Bill.com talking about just patience was her core word.
Yeah.
Just people, we just need to be patient in this time. When you think about the compassion or the empathy or that side of it, just what would be some of the ways that you think we would see that from your team if we were engaging them, or how do you talk about that, put that into practice?
Yeah, I think there was one vendor I was looking at recently. I won't mention their name, but they kind of understood the fact that this decision is going to get pushed off. We had already been doing a pilot with them, and I think they could tell that obviously this was no longer a real priority for us. But instead of continuing to push, instead they kind of came back with sort of helpful insights and stuff that they saw that our team was doing, insights that we weren't aware of, to help us better make decisions going forward. And that type of sort of proactive helping, I think it wins long term.
I think we're seeing a lot of creativity out there from our partners as well. Just looking at, there's been some free offerings, there's been some extended trials. We've been testing some of that on our side with our native Zoom integration. So it's a super impressive time. What I wanted to do is fire up a quick poll for the live group here. So let me just activate this. And the question that we were looking at today is just, what do you think affects revenue productivity the most? And we'll just let people jump in here. But specifically, is it, at this time, who we're selling to or what we're actually selling, when they transition from work to home or where. So just looking at the different aspects of what we think is impacting revenue productivity. Right now, responses are coming in. We're about 57% think it's who they sell to is the number one impact right now during this uncertain time is impacting productivity. So 56% who they sell to, 44% what they're selling. And I think that that's consistent on the data we saw yesterday around the different verticals. So I'm having a significant lift right now and have others seeing a big drop. Brendan, I want to thank you for helping us kick off Tuesday for everybody, sharing the data, and big fan of Carta. Thank you for just the awesome service. I've used it many, many years myself, and wish you guys the best.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate it. Okay, cheers.